and radical in keeping with what we see in Scripture, and that's a beautiful thing. But I really am glad to know that you're here this morning, and I want to welcome you. Regardless of your race, ethnicity, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, or denominational background, you are welcome here. Whether you've been blessed with a strong faith community, or you're filled with doubts or questions, you're just not sure, or you feel the pain of spiritual trauma from your past, you are welcome here. Whether your heart, mind, and body are full of energy, or you feel weary and the world is on your shoulders at the end of a long week, you are welcome here. Whether you're an old soul, whether you're young at heart, an intellectual, or someone with a soft, squishy marshmallow heart like me, you are welcome here. Parkway United Church of Christ is a place where we seek justice, we build community, and we listen deeply. And I think you can see that and feel that here today. I want you to know that you are seen, that you are heard, and that you are loved in this place. And we hope that you feel welcome and will enjoy this morning. As we continue our worship, I want you to hear some words of centering from Nancy Bieber. She wrote a book called The Sacred Art of Finding Your Way. Here we are, loving one, light to whom our face turns. You are the dancer, and we would love to dance with you. A dance of grace and truth, of love and of wisdom, a dance of life. We would learn to dance, how to stop and step and pause, how to weave among the others, responding to your music through the dance of life. And even when we forget the steps and we fumble, we forget the pause, we lose our place, we forget the other dancers, and we collide. We still want to continue to learn the dance. Longing to respond with ready faithfulness, yet struggling to trust. The weaving of the dance, needing gentle touch to steady us, needing light to show the way. Here we are, loving one, ready to begin to dance with you, God, and to dance with each other. Let's take a moment to continue to center yourselves. Put the food down for just a second. I want you to take a deep breath. Feel the love of God flowing through your veins. And exhale all the tension that your body is holding. Whether you know it or not, it can be in there. Breathe in and breathe out. Exhaling all the feelings of self-doubt and negativity. Friends, I want us to put aside the cares and the worries of the day, and I want to relish this time of worship, this time of being together. I think often we find that the shape of our lives limits the dreams about what's possible. Everything feels like it's in a box. There's too much. And we need to find a way to open ourselves up to the possibilities that exist. Open our minds, God, to the possible. Keep us mindful of the rich history of this place. And be with us as we discern the ways that you will use this community, this place, and all of these people to bring love, hope, and justice to a hurting world. God, awaken our awareness, free our hearts, and inspire us to find the ways that we can each serve and be a part of this community. Holy love, we long to find new ways to dance with you and to dance with each other as we look towards a bright new future. Open our hearts and minds, God. Amen. So I'd like for us to take a moment. You can eat again. You already eating again. But if you had stopped and we're still breathing, go ahead and eat now. And I'd love for us to look at prayers and concerns and celebrations. Does anyone have anything? Yes. Absolutely. Oh, go ahead, keep going.
And I didn't go, try to participate in the singing today because somebody said, well, why don't you go? You have a nice voice. It's just that I was tossing and turning all night with, let's just say it, a lower body discomfort. I'm still having trouble with. So I know it's a silly complaint.
There are no silly complaints at all. I think we're all aware that the COVID numbers are still a problem. Anna's not here this morning, Anna and her family, and we have Grant who has stepped in. And they all have COVID. I think there are lots of fears. We're not quite sure how to deal with things and would ask for peace and comfort for you as you experience COVID around you. Who else? Yes.
I have a friend Colleen with complicated back surgery tomorrow, very complex.
Okay. Colleen had, Connie, okay, has a complicated back surgery tomorrow. Colleen, thank you. I can't hear. Yes.
My cousin Julie is dealing with a cancer diagnosis.
Okay. We ask for prayers for Julie, who is dealing with a cancer diagnosis. Okay, yes, Larry?
Special thank you to Matt for making this possible because he had to move everything out of the sanctuary. He thought he was going to have help me down.
Oh, amen to that. That is a special thank you to Matt, who is not only here, not only worked really hard to get everything here, but is so faithful. We would not have this place without Matt, and we appreciate everything that you do, even if we don't tell you enough. Yes.
My friend Diane is having open heart surgery on Tuesday.
Oh my goodness, Diane, who's having open heart surgery on Tuesday. Yes, Patty.
My niece Emily is having surgery on Wednesday.
That's Emily, who's having surgery on Wednesday for thyroid cancer. Yes,
I'd like to thank the whole team that was here at the cleaning up yesterday, and Kate and Winnie especially. I was giving everybody our jobs and kind of overseeing. It was really a terrific experience.
that's fantastic. Kate Mawini in particular, but everybody else who came out yesterday to help clean up the church, spend time together, and really make this place nice and sparkling clean. It looks fabulous. Yes, and let's do that again. All right, yes.
I guess we need to pray again for all the healthcare workers, especially now with another wave of COVID, and the hospitals are starting to fill up again, and the healthcare workers who are bombarded with these people and having to work extra hours because of it.
Absolutely. Prayers for the healthcare workers, not only the long hours and the shortages, but the emotional toll that takes on them as the COVID numbers rise. Just definitely need to remember that. Who else? Sterling.
For Tim and Jim.
Okay. Praying for Tim and for Jim. Okay, yes.
My friend Diane recovering from hip replacement surgery 2 days ago.
Okay. Diane, who had hip replacement surgery on Thursday. All right. Anyone else in here? All right, let's take a peek at the chat. And Rose is expressing thanksgiving and gratitude. I think that's something that we all should feel, and maybe we don't express it or remember it enough. Last chance. Any other prayers, concerns, and celebrations for the good of the cause? All right, let's take a moment to pray. God of mystery and majesty, holy light, beloved parent, we come to you with the concerns on our hearts. Some were spoken, and those that were not spoken. There are so many people hurting in this world, and people that we know specifically who are dealing with medical diagnoses, with upcoming surgeries, with recovery times, with fears of COVID, and those healthcare workers that are working to try to keep us all safe, to heal those who are not, and the emotional toll that it's taking on them. We pray for safe travels for those who are traveling, and we ask that they bring them home safely. We're grateful, Holy One, for this place and these people and the tremendous blessings that you have given to each of us. Help us to be thankful, Lord. And we pray for our troubled world, asking that we might find ways to be salt and to be light to all those around us. We come to you praying the prayer that Jesus taught us to pray in our own language and our own tradition. Our Father and Mother, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And now, Sterling, I have lost you. Sterling and I are going to sing the hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. And we invite you to reflect as you listen.
Come, O fount of every blessing, tune my heart to sing your praise. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of endless praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet, sung by flaming tongues of love. Praise the mountain, things upon it, mount of God's unfailing love. Oh, to grace, how great a debtor, daily I am drawn anew. Let that grace now, like a fetter, bind my wandering heart to you. Born to wonder, I can feel it, wonder from the love unknown. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal it for your very own.
As we continue our service, I want you to hear now the word from Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and the perfecter of our faith, who for the sake of the joy that was set before him endured the cross, disregarding its shame, and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such hostility against himself from sinners, so that you may not grow weary or lose heart. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. One of my favorite memories from childhood was Thanksgiving Day at my great-grandma Mamie's house. My great-grandma Mamie lived until I was a freshman in college. She died at the age of 94, and I was so lucky Did not have grandparents that were living, but I had this wonderful great-grandmother, and Thanksgiving was a big day. She lived in this small brick ranch house in Elkin, the top of this enormous hill. It overlooked a highway, Highway 268, if you're familiar with Elkin. And then there were tobacco fields, and you could see the Yadkin River. Actually, as a side confession, I always wondered whether the Mississippi River was bigger than the Yadkin River. I found out in my adult life, yes, it actually is. But when you're a small child, everything feels like it's within your own personal realm. I come from a family of farmers where the vegetables were picked from the backyard and the muscadines were hanging heavy on the vines that were in the side yard. And although the house was small, our whole extended family gathered every year. And we went out into this hallway, and there were 2 giant chest freezers. And they were covered with homemade lace crocheted tablecloths. And they had all different kinds of meat, every vegetable casserole you could imagine, probably all completely based on cream of mushroom soup. Not necessarily, but probably. We had Jell-O salad with marshmallows. We had cornbread, biscuits, and gravy, and at least 9 or 10 desserts, because everyone needed to bring that. We had card tables, dining room tables, and kitchen tables, and they were set up in every room of the house. And we all would sit together, but before we started anything, we would hold hands and pray. And the circle would go through the kitchen, and then the dining room, and then the living room, and the hall, and come back around. And we would hold those hands together. And then at the end, because I was a kid, the kids got to eat first. So we'd go flying to the chest freezers and go see what we could get in terms of the food. It was simple food, but in my mind, this was the heavenly banquet. The food was utterly delicious. The laughter and the stories and the honesty and the connection of that family felt like heaven to me, just like it does in here today. And if I'm going to be really honest, in my young age, not just the Yadkin River, I was convinced that Jesus really might have come back to earth in the form of my grandma Mamie. Because, ooh, Lord, I'm going to cry now. Because the love that I felt from God came most clearly sitting in her lap and being held. That was what Jesus was to me. And the fact that she and my great-grandfather both fished in the fish pond behind their house sort of seemed to support this theory. So we think about the disciples, that last fish fry on the beach before Jesus goes. I have a story going in the brain there. Unfortunately, as I grew up, I realized Grandma Mamie was not the incarnate Jesus. But yet she was the hands and feet of Jesus to me and to the rest of the world. The Hebrew Bible is filled with all sorts of examples of radical hospitality, often centered around food. Covenants were finalized and executed by a meal. Jesus fed the 5,000 in a miraculous picnic on the grounds as they listened to his teachings. He broke bread in the homes of those he taught, regardless of who they were and their social status. And the final night, before he was arrested, he spent the time around the table with his disciples at the Last Supper. And later, disciples in the early churches would continue these traditions, breaking bread together and sharing the good news in a radical new way of living through an enfleshed God on this earth. Food is community. Food is sustenance. Food is a gift and a sign of love. And that's what you've given each other this morning. And it's fitting that we come together this morning in the name of Jesus as a community, breaking bread together. So every single Thanksgiving growing up, my grandparents and my great-grandparents, my aunts, uncles, cousins, distant relatives from both sides of the family all came to this little house in Elkin. And there were probably about 50 people crowded in the house, all scrunched up together. And we were sharing family, and we were sharing community. And to me, that was that great cloud of witnesses that we just heard about in Hebrew. There were those who'd come before me. They were the ones that shaped my life, my path, the way that I wanted to live, the way that I wanted to trust in God, and the impact that I hope to have on the world We hear about great clouds of witnesses, and we think about the saints that have come before. We think about the stories in the Bible of all the people who came. They were imperfect, and yet Jesus came for them. And those witnesses spoke to the people in the Bible just as witnesses speak to us. You also are that great cloud of witnesses. Paul charged the crowd to run with perseverance in the race that's before us, with all those witnesses cheering us on. You are cheering each other on, whether it's through prayers and concerns, or talk around the table, or dreams of the future. We know that Jesus is the author and the perfecter of our faith. He's the center, but the witnesses are the giant community of God. And this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. This church has been going for a long time. It's a rich history here, and there are lots of wonderful dreams for the future. But it's a marathon, and that marathon's going to continue. And so for those of you who have built and loved Parkway, and those who are visiting, and those who are just beginning to come to know this congregation, you have a chance to talk about the ways we want to live out this vision for this future community. You've heard the biblical stories of the cloud of witnesses, and you've been the witnesses for others as well, through this church, this community, and in this world. And so today, as we sit around the table in our small groups, we're going to spend some time talking about the way we want to be witnesses to this community and witnesses to each other, because we can care for the world, but we need to care for ourselves and all of this beautiful family as well. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But before we do that, the pickup choir has some special music for us, if you'd like to come up. And I think we're going to stand way back here and try to sort of stay away from the table so that we make sure that everyone feels safe.
Good morning. So good to be here with you, and I'm so thrilled to be with the pickup choir again. It's been 2.5 years since this group sang, and they don't sound like that at all. They sound as if they just sang together an hour ago. Which they did. The pickup choir has to meet a challenge of getting together for about 30 minutes before we sing, and that's it. That's the only rehearsal they get. So it's astonishing to me what they've done. This song, called We Are the World, was recorded by what's called the Supergroup USA for African Relief. And during a month when we're celebrating and highlighting the importance of community, I can think of no more fitting song than We Are the World. And of course, any part of it you know, feel free to sing along.
There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying
that's what you're doing, I do. What's wrong? Nothing. I think this is close right here.
So over the last 2 months, we've had conversations about dreams and hopes and visions and passions for this church in the future. And we've also talked about the way that the pandemic has changed the church as a whole, and this church. The world has changed. And we need to focus our efforts on the ways that we can serve God and that we can make the world a better place. But as we've talked about, we cannot do everything. As I showed you last week, one of the most striking things about the conversations and all the engagements that we've had over the last couple of months had those flow charts. And the biggest thing that stood out was that people wanted community within Parkway. There's so much justice that needs to happen in the world. We have elections coming up. We have critical issues. We have all these things happen. But of all those things, people were seeking community. They were seeking the music, whether it's the pickup choir or all the other people. And so we as a vision team have come together and tried to take that into account and tried to figure out what kinds of priorities we would like to have for the future. So we're going to take some time around the tables, and we want to hear from each of you. Each table, I hope, has a member of the vision team. If not, I'll come join the table. And we're going to lead the conversations about the recommendations that the church, that we're going to take to the general council. So if you look on the back of your bulletin, if I can find it, in print that you can probably read, but I cannot because it's very small. We're going to go through each of these at a table. Your vision coach will sort of talk about them, and then we want to hear from you. If you think it's the best idea in the world, tell us. If you think it's the most ridiculous idea in the world, tell us that too. Tell us why. Think about your own ideas and what you think about these, because we're going to meet tomorrow night and we're going to talk about some final ways to look at the vision, and then we'll present that next Sunday. But I want you to remember that the things that you're seeing, they're recommendations. They are not final, they're not binding, they're not written in stone, and we want to hear from you. This is your chance today. All right, the coaches are going to be taking notes on your thoughts, and they're going to be bringing them back to the vision team. We'll probably spend about 15 minutes doing this. And then if we can elect one person from each table to stand up and very, very, very briefly give us just a little bit of an idea of what happened at your table. What'd you hear? What happened? What do you think about things? So that we can all get a sense of what's happening in all the other places. And we ask you to also think about a way that you can engage and that you can lead in the year to come. So as you're thinking about those visions, think about your part in it and the parts you want to play. So here we go. Vision coaches, if you'll take it from here, we'll sit around. It is 11:49. I'll call us back in 15 minutes. And I think you got Ralph.
Okay, I'm out. Guess I'm on here.
So are we doing this?
We're trying. I'm in.
I mean, do we have a list of those recommendations?
They're just below your bulletin, Nancy.
Oh, let me find that.
Okay, I got it, I think. Yeah, okay, I'm good.
Okay.
I thought Bill would be leading this, no?
Well, I thought so too. Is he not here now?
I don't know. I just sent him a message.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Did you see him jumping up, trying to get into the picture?
No, I didn't.
His little head shows at the bottom. He was jumping
Oh.
up. So
Oh,
he's using his iPhone, so I guess that's a little
Okay.
hard.
Yeah,
You see the recommendation?
I do. Yeah, I do. Uh-huh. Thank you, Anne.
Yes. I see Bill, and Bill, you're muted. Now you might be, nope, you're still muted. You may need to send us a chat.
Unmute.
Yeah. Because I'd be interested to know what the commentary is from the vision
Right.
coaches.
He's got his hands up.
So these came from interviews. We didn't have table talks, did we?
We had that one big meeting that we all, well, not, it wasn't that big, about
Yeah.
2 of us had it.
Mm.
And we talked about things, but we didn't focus, it just sort of evolved things.
Mm.
But I don't think it was this deep. I think this is a lot of the vision type people.
Right. I think so too. Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear. I think you're asking an important question, Nancy. It'd be interesting to have a minute or two of background on
Yeah,
how these recommendations came about.
right.
And this is Marlon.
Oh, hey, Marlon.
Hey.
At the, my general rule is to remain silent and appear to be speaking, to open my mouth and remove all doubts. But I did spend some time this past week with Bill.
Oh, great.
And may I speak from our conversation?
Sure. We say yes. I don't know if Bill
Oh,
said.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And this is not Bill speaking, this is me speaking. So
Oh, okay. All right,
take it
Marlon,
with a
great.
grain of salt and what you know about me. So excuse me. I think to the question of where did these come from? There were some listening sessions, and I think there were numerous ways for people to give input. And this is a summary, so to speak, of what the committee, what do we call in this group? A committee?
Vision
Vision team
coaches.
or something, yeah.
Coaches.
So what the team heard from various people. So it would have been, in some cases, I think, individual interviews with staff, people with committees, with chairs of committees, and so forth, and then general input from the congregation through various, I know there were some table talks, one that Bill led for Zoom. So I think that's the kind of the background as I understand it. Is that helpful?
Okay.
Yeah, I remember the one that was on Zoom because I was a part of that. So I think the vision coaches really tried to get an overall commentary from folks.
Yeah, so this is I'm not sure if it's an exhaustive list of what they heard necessarily, but it's a compilation and I think a summary of what the main points of what they think they have heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marlon.
So how does that, how do these proposed recommendations hit you? What do you feel when you read them?
Well, I jumped down to the worship service, and there are 3 points, I think, under that, which I like all of them. There's the feeling that I think all of that will be at a lot. I'd like to see more church members involved, particularly in parts of worship.
So do you have specifics on what that might look like, how more church members would be involved?
I would say in terms of the service itself in readings, I could see drama as a presentation way of presenting ideas and reflections. For a couple of thoughts.
So other people, how do these recommendations feel to you? How do they hit you?
Well, as part of the Zoom group, gotta tell you, I like the idea of upgrading our technology.
Yeah.
So I'm all in favor of that. I've kind of expressed that interest during COVID on several occasions. So I think that's great. I myself would like to get more involved if I can figure out what that looks like. But there's a part of me that says, oh, just suck the life out of them, give them everything that you can get and keep a low profile. No, I'm not going to do that. But I'm not sure where I belong at this point in time. I don't want to be any leader, but I will be a right-hand man to anybody who wants to lead me astray.
So Rose, when you say, talk to us a bit, I guess, about your Zoom experience and what would be helpful for you in your Zoom experience, or what has not been helpful in the Zoom experience.
Well, there have been times when the technology has been a little iffy. Sound quality, I think, suffers in the church service. Do y'all agree a little bit? On the couple
Yes.
Yeah,
occasions-
absolutely. Uh-huh.
on a couple occasions that I've been at the service, it just seems I'm much more appreciative of everything that's going on because I can hear everything well. And part of that could be me in my old ears, but so that's one thing. I think it would be nice. So my ex-church has, I don't know how much they've spent, but they spent a lot on the technology stuff. So there are meetings at the facility where there are people that are live and on Zoom, and you can hear fairly well, and it's interactive because they have large monitors where the meeting's going on, so that the people that are there in person can see the people that are on Zoom. So, and I really don't know what I'm talking about. So that's it.
Oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. It would be nice to hear the people when they're speaking in the congregation because you don't hear them.
Right.
And sometimes we get a feedback on, yes, thank you for sharing that so-and-so is having surgery. But when you don't know who it's coming from, like we heard two Dianes that are looking forward to surgery.
Yeah.
I have no idea which Dianes those are that are having what surgery. And I'd kind of like to know. And if you saw who was making the request, then you might be able to fill in some information without giving away, without saying so-and-so is having surgery with the last name. So
Right.
that's real disappointing.
And we used to give like an initial, I know there was some privacy issues that people had, but like Diane K or Diane X or whatever.
So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other comments on the Zoom experience?
I'm glad we have it. I think it's fabulous.
Oh, it's been a lifesaver.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really has.
Yeah.
For me,
And this summer, the sermon series that we had on Jesus and the Christ, I just thought that was extremely powerful. That was just, that was very powerful.
What about the Sunday school part of that? Did you, which was the discussion?
Yes, that was good also. I mean, all of it, it just lent itself to a lot of, I guess you call it community involvement. Because people were really weighing in and they were learning new things, hearing new things, weighing new things. And that was interesting. I think we've learned to be less fearless about being vulnerable in front of each other in the Zoom.
yeah, the coffee hours afterwards, remember the discussion?
Exactly.
Yes.
They were fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely they were. I think that was really, it's interesting that when you think about being face to face and you have a large group, that's a different kind of experience than when you're with 8 or 10 on Zoom. And one's not better, or I'm not saying one's better or less than another. I'm just saying they're different. And sometimes large face-to-face is less intimate feeling than the small face-to-face, say face-to-face, looking at all your faces on Zoom, you know, is quite intimate, you know.
And we are looking at faces and not the back of heads.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah,
Right.
right.
I think
So-
people, I
Mhm.
think people like those enough that they said when we come back to church, it'd be nice to have a few circles spread around the fellowship hall. So we're not just all in the hall for a few minutes, but we could go gather with a few people in the fellowship hall like we've done on Zoom. When we're
Mhm.
back together to keep that going, because it's been
Mhm.
really nice to be able to have those conversations on Zoom.
Right. Yeah.
So, and H, I have been out of Sunday school for some time. Has the Bible study class been meeting by Zoom?
Oh, yes.
And how has that worked or not worked? What, as we think about technology enhancements, is there anything that you wish could happen?
Yeah.
I think it works great, I would say, and Nancy could say something about it, and Roseanne could too, if she could get the link in time.
Yeah.
I forgot to send her the link. We didn't have a link on the bulletin, and so I sent a link out, but forgot to send it to everybody. And
Mhm.
so Roseanne gets my abject apology. But yeah, Zoom is working really well for
Right.
Bible study and for people that want to go to in-person church. You know, we finish by 10:30, and so they leave and they go.
Mhm.
And so I think we've really, it's worked well. We have 2 people, one that lives in King and one that lives in Thomasville, who come on Zoom that would not be coming otherwise. And
Mhm.
so it's broadened our base, and we've appreciated that.
And
What-
back to the point that either you or Nancy made, Anne, that we had even more people there as part of the book discussion this summer. So I thought that was very good.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
When,
So
when you all have your meeting, you're talking about would really work well, and did you have any audio dropouts? Like
You
we
know-
see on
Uh,
regular Zoom when we do the church service, they'll be speaking along and boom, no audio, and then it comes back.
You know, we've not had a problem with that, Jim. And I couldn't tell you why. So our audio has really been pretty good. What has made the only time it's a problem is when people's equipment is older. And we have run into that if they're not right up on their microphone, they're a little harder to hear.
Mhm.
But that's not something the church can correct.
Right. And we have frozen sometimes, you know.
Oh,
and
yeah,
that's
we have frozen.
related to unstable internet, you know.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
we have frozen.
Right.
We roll with it.
Yeah. For sure.
So Jim, are you still experiencing dropout of sound for the worship service?
Yes.
Mm.
It has happened today, even when she was up there speaking.
Yeah, she froze.
Going along and boom, no sound, then it comes back. So we have always had dropouts when we look at the service.
Huh.
I had her freeze, but I could hear her.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
I had to
that.
freeze too.
Yeah. Yeah, no
Yeah.
telling
So
about
and I'm not sure if there's a solution for that. I know Craig and Matt and the worship committee has been working on that for a long time. And part of it is the limited availability of internet at the actual church site. So we tried
Right.
both AT&T and Spectrum. And while they have very fast download speeds, they have relatively slow upload speeds. And we need a very fast upload speed. We don't care so much about download because we're trying to push information out. And I know that's been an ongoing problem. And there's right now, I don't know that there's a good solution for it.
Hmm.
Okay.
As AT&T increases their fiber connections across the community, that may be an option in the future, but right now it's not.
Hmm.
So it's a bandwidth issue going out, right?
That's right. Upload bandwidth issue is still, the speed is still fairly slow. You know, I think what we have here at our house is a 10 megabyte download speed, but our upload speed, 100 download speed, but our upload speed is only 10. And I think the church was able to improve it to maybe 20 as an upload speed, but that's still way, way low. It's only 1/5 of what the download speed is, and that's been the issue.
Okay, thanks for explaining it.
Yeah. Marlon, just one other comment I would make generally is I'm glad to see that the first bullet point where it's basically saying that the vision team isn't gonna recommend only one or two issues.
Mhm.
I mean, I certainly would have gone with that if that's what they had decided, but I think to leave it to the point where people can follow where they feel called. And that gets down to that bottom issue about the question about volunteering to coordinate something. If somebody feels called to something and wants to coordinate it, I'd say go for it, even if it's not something I particularly want to do. So, I mean, that's always been the way we've operated, I think. So I was glad to see that.
I'm not sure how much time we have left. I think she talked about 15 minutes possibly.
And it's
So-
past 15 minutes because I set a timer.
Of course.
Are there concerns that you have about the possible recommendation?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just looking at the last one about the community connections and wanted to make sure I understood. It said that the connections would be focused just around music and ecology. So does that mean that there would not be any meeting with community groups focused around justice? Is that, or is that somehow worked in there, or how would that be interpreted?
John, I don't know the answer to that. Does anyone else have a feeling or idea of what that might mean?
Well, I thought that John, it's interesting you would raise that. I think that point sort of contradicts the first point. So, you know, where it basically says we considered whether Parkway should focus its efforts on only one or two social/environmental issues.
Yeah.
And then said, we decided not to recommend that. So that sort of says to me, okay, broad-based, whatever people decide to do, social issues, environmental issues.
That seems like a really huge area to be leaving out.
Right. I just think it's included in that first thing. And I think about, is it called IDF, Nancy? Is that the
Industrial area, IAF.
IAF?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's sort of coming up. I know Wentz has been real involved in that, and
Parkway is too.
Parkway sent representatives to their meeting this past week. So
that would get the broad part.
Right, I think that's the broad within the community.
Right.
So there's energy for that in the congregation, and I'm assuming
Oh, yeah.
these recommendations would fit with that.
Mhm.
So I would have had that concern too,
Yeah.
that you're raising, just so you know.
So you're saying that you don't believe it is intending to leave that in the
Right.
area of social concerns and stuff.
Right. So I think that's still very much a
Okay.
focus within our church.
So that's something that I'm hearing this online group is saying needs some clarification.
That's a good point, Marlon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Personally, I just assumed that that was part of who we were, and we didn't even need to discuss that.
Right, right.
I'm glad you brought that up, John, because I was just taking that for granted because that's Parkway.
Right.
Well, I sort of do, but then I saw that and I
Mhm,
kind of
mhm.
made me stop and think.
Right. Yeah, good point.
Are there other things that you wish were included?
Okay, everybody. I told you it was going to be 15 minutes. I lied. We started talking, and I hope you were having some great conversations at your tables as well. Oops. We okay? All right. What I would love for us to do very, very, very briefly is have one representative from each table just to give us a bit of a sense of what happened. I mean, 3 or 4 sentences, something, but just tell me what happened at your table and what you felt. So let's see, Kate's table. Would y'all like to start?
The first table here, what?
Or you can come over here if you want to, either way.
Is it on?
Yeah, come on over.
Come on down. Okay, at our table over here, we were in agreement with the first bullet that we enjoy the mixture of issues and basically concluded we could never corral a group like this anyway into 1 or 2 issues. So we gave up on that. We moved on. The next one, we were in agreement. Let's see. In terms of, the technical side, the online side, we felt that this makes us available to people who can't get to church or who have health limitations or transportation problems, and we felt, I think, committed to continuing to have the online presence for that reason, among others. The third bullet, evaluating. How can you argue with evaluating, right? We didn't. We were a little concerned that if we expand the offerings down below on the real estate, that they would create a maintenance problem and one more burden to worry about. But it was pointed out that a meandering path would be easy to maintain, and so there was some excitement about of the evaluation and also expanding our use of the real estate around us. Okay. Evaluate the church property. So on the last bullet, increasing the number and range of events and community connections with groups from outside the church, everyone was in agreement on that. We thought perhaps the coordination side would be a demand on time and on Craig's time. And so there was some interest in expanding possibly Ann Owen's hours. She is the administrative assistant if she's interested and we have the budget. Possibly combine the coordination with community groups with the property manager role that we discussed briefly. So somebody who who takes the evaluation of the real estate and kind of implements what needs to get done, being possibly the very same person as the community outreach person. And then we wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to introduce to you Ann and Jim Lake. Raise your hands if you would. Ann and Jim got to know Craig, who is so active in our community, and they were impressed by him. So after meeting him out in the community, they came to the church and said, we'd like to hold a program here with our group on Medicaid expansion. And sure enough, now they are coming fairly regularly to our church. So it is a way that we bring in people who have the same interests that we have, and hopefully continue to meet with us. So welcome, Jim and Ann Lake.
Fantastic. Go to it.
We had a lot of similar response. A couple of additional things. There was definitely concern expressed about how we continue to do virtual church and engage that community with the regular church or the larger church. You know, how to engage those churches so that we're all community and not a virtual church community and another church community. There was a lot of enthusiasm about the outreach, but again, concern about how do we do that without putting more on Craig or without, you know, creating more tasks for Craig to have to do in terms of keeping track of the building, keeping it open, closing it, that kind of thing. There were some concerns expressed about some maintenance that does need to be done around the building that's both immediate and forthcoming. As far as the focusing on one or two missions, we talked a little bit about that, and one of the things we did discuss was we are talking about perhaps as well doing like a 6-month or a year-long commitment to certain missions, and that would allow room for other missions to bubble up and be part of it as well. So we have.
Perfect. Sounds good. All right, who's up? Let's see. Diane, you want to go? Oh, Bill. Come on down.
As you might guess, our group had similar agreements with the first two groups. One of the things that we picked up really early on was that when you limit things, you need to collaborate. And we were reminded that justice and nurture work together to bring cloth napkins and to use fabric rather than plastic every chance we could. And that's a good example of reducing and collaborating. We also were reminded that Jethro told Moses to delegate. I was glad to hear that. Regarding the tech support, there was universal support, and we need it in so many ways, not only in bringing our two groups together, but allow everybody to participate in worship and the service. Under the environment and the study of the church's property, there was a real strong push that human beings and Christians have a responsibility to protect our environment, not to exploit it, and to be very careful if we start playing around in the woods. And finally, the notion of groups from outside the church. We were thrilled with the Freedom School's participation here and the laughter of young people and how good it made us feel. But Craig almost did that all by himself as the host and sponsor, and we found out there were some things to learn from that, but the notion of bringing in those types of groups made us feel good. The last question about volunteers and leadership is still open. The nomination committee would like to hear from all of you. Thank you.
My table over here, we basically agreed with all these recommendations. Oh, and here I brought my lyrics to the song instead of the piece of paper, but see if I can remember. I guess the last thing was, it's okay. We were a little bit confused about how the bringing in other groups or bringing us together with other groups, how that gets coordinated. And is there a committee who's going to oversee that process? Or is it that we're looking for volunteers to pick up individual items and try to get that
get the community involved in that. So that was something that we'd like to have clarified.
We had Ann at our table, so we learned. But one of the things we talked about was the need for communication so that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing, and, you know, how do we inform, how do we make people be able to know what's going on, and how, you know, how we each can participate in that. And we also talked about the fact that we probably need a couple of committees of people who are willing to look at land, property, and another to look at being sort of the coordinators of, if somebody's going to be using the building, that you'd have a few people who have volunteered to come and be here. And, you know, we'd only need one person to do that at the time, but you at least have a few people you could call on who have the knowledge about the heat and the lights and all that stuff. I think that's the only thing different that we talked about.
Who's up?
Hope I'm not going out of order here. First of all, I just want to tell everybody, I think this is great, what we have here this morning. It's just been a lot of fun. And myself, when I get home, I'm going to YouTube, and I'm going to watch that inferior version of We Are the World, which you can find.
But we noticed you weren't in there singing.
There's a reason for that. But what I want to know mostly is, Sean Nelligan, where are you? Were you supposed to be Bruce Springsteen or Willie Nelson? Okay, I'm sorry. You get me in front of a microphone, I just go on. Oh, you writing my notes anyway. That's okay. Let's see if I can do it correctly from memory. And I have a great table who I am confident will correct me when I misspeak. I think we were hit general agreement on the 5 points, but what we talked about mostly was the environment and environmental issues, both as stewards of this property and outreach. One idea that I thought was particularly good was the idea Carl gave us of an environmental coffee house, right, where you meet regularly, different environmental topics are discussed, along with things I do not understand, like music and art. Thought it was a very interesting idea. Also, Tim Binkley was awfully generous about offering to expand the drawdown class and what they talk about. But clearly from our table, we just stayed environmental. All right. What have I left out? Good table, what have I left out? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. We did talk about technology and how great Matt's been and how there needs to be more support for that.
And we want to step up and have more people involved in the worship service.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also the possibility of the soul of aging classes as a community outreach.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you for those. Okay. Thank you, Ann.
So our table, let's see if I can summarize this.
Several things happened at our table. Two of the newest attendees of our congregation had things to say about why they're here and why they stayed. And part of what they said is that it's welcoming. It's not just polite, it's curious about who you are. And so a sort of embrace rather than just being polite to people. And following on that, one of the new attendees said that we need to figure out a way to find out what young people are concerned about in our community. That would both draw them in and also inform us. And it fed into the technology, and that is we need some sort of platform to communicate what we're doing with young people, because that's the medium that the media, we didn't get beyond that, but that was very helpful. And it fed into that last part about, oh shoot, I didn't bring my, about connecting with the community. And the two areas that were mentioned were music and environment. And if we're doing things in those areas, communicating it to the wider community becomes important. And so those things seem to connect. We also talked about this, and Karen and I, as representatives to the IAF, the Industrial Areas Foundation organizing initiative, that's cross-congregational, cross-racial, cross-class, and will get us involved in relationships with people of color and others in our community in ways that we need. Those of us who've been in the various, over the last 5 years, racial discussions about racial consciousness, racial discrimination, et cetera, part of what we need is to be in relationships with people of color. And although there are some people of color in our congregation, many of us don't have those relationships. This is a great opportunity to develop those relationships. And it's a way also of connecting into getting to know other people. So what became important in our group was relationships, developing relationships internally in the congregation, but also externally with people we don't know yet. So relationships sort of became a theme for us.
Fantastic. All right, help me out. Is everybody gone? Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, guys. I hope that was enjoyable and helpful. As a committee person, as the person coming in and facilitating all of this, it was so nice to hear that the things that we've been talking about and the things we were hearing at the tables again. And again, you know the vision coaches. If you think of anything else, feel free to reach out to us, and we will go from there. Based on time, I know that you really want to hear me sing again. Not really. But I think we're going to forego the special hymn for the evening, and we'll, for the afternoon, and then we'll go from there. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge offerings. The offerings of your time and your talents and your gifts and all the things that you do for the campus and your financial offerings. These are great ideas. They're wonderful things that can happen, but it takes money. And we not only need the money coming in now, we need the pledge cards coming in now, because it's the time for the mission plan. And if we don't, bad. Fantastic.
Could I also say the
Yes.
nominations committee really wants to see what people want to be involved in. So we're in the
Yes.
process of obviously making those decisions for next year, but please jot down things that make sense to you that you'd like to do.
Absolutely. Once again, great ideas today. Step up. There's some great opportunities. Yes.
We're putting committees together, but we want those forms that you're filling out, the donations, and also what leadership roles or committee roles you want to be on. It helps to let us know.
Many of you got something in the mail that's a commitment survey, if you've got your correct address. And at the bottom, the fourth one is I wish to offer leadership or be involved in following activities. So
And some of you have already filled that out, but if you haven't, we'd love to hear from you.
So we will have those this week and again next week. And again, prayerfully consider ways that you can step up and get involved. Because we've got a lot of good people that have been doing a lot of things, but they've been doing it for a lot of years.
Can
Some
you
good
repeat some of those? We can't
For those
hear
of
on
you
Zoom.
giving online, we have the buttons on the website. You know how to use those. You can use snail mail. You can drop things by the church. We will happily take money, checks, pledge cards, all those sorts of things. So that's about it. Any other announcements? All right, I have two. I have 1.5. There is a Vesper service that is going to take place at 6:15 in the sanctuary on a date that I forgot to write down. Anybody know what the date is? November 1st? Okay, very good, November 1st. So we now have the full announcement. And don't forget that the Neighbors in Need offering is still being taken up in October. That's something we've been doing for years and want to make sure that we can keep doing that. And go vote. Yes, 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 absolutely. All right. Anything else? Absolutely. Let me check the chat. I think we're good there. I believe that there is still dessert out there. So if you would like to linger for a little bit and you need more food, oops, yes, Steve.
If I could just add to what Anna said, I'm aware that, in these early voting sites, there's been one at Winston-Salem State for the last several election cycles, and there are people who don't want one there. There are people in the Board of Elections, et cetera. Anyway, there's been opposition to having one at HBCU. And so I have received requests from like the Ministers' Conference, et cetera. If you are going to early vote, you can vote at any of those early voting sites. Winston-Salem State is an early voting site. So if you've got time to drive down to the Anderson Center, go vote there, because the more people who vote there, the easier the case is that we need one there.
Absolutely. I think we could all hear that, but on the off chance you couldn't, early voting, there has definitely been push against HBCU voting sites. And so if you've got the opportunity to go to Winston-Salem State, go to Anderson Center and vote there. It's actually fun to go on the campus. I'm amazed at how much of a resource it is for this community and how much is going on there that I'm not even aware of. So take the opportunity. Yes?
October 30th is Souls to the Polls. Maybe we should put that in the newsletter.
Absolutely. All right, October 30th, Souls to the Polls, and we will put that in the announcements. Perfect. Got it covered. All right, anything else for the good of the cause? All right, wonderful. Thank you all for being here today. This has been a gift for me to be a part of this group, and I hope it's been as much of a gift for you. Go out this week, spread hope and joy and love to a world that really desperately needs it, and know that you are a beautiful, beloved child of the Most High God. Amen. And we have dessert. Don't forget.